You know that feeling, right? That kind of background hum of anxiety or sometimes something much heavier, real grief, maybe even despair. It's just part of being human, isn't it? The ancients had a word, dukkha. It points to this feeling that things aren't ever quite fully satisfying.
Mm-hmm. That pervasive sense of not quite right.
Exactly. But here's where the research we've been looking at gets really interesting, maybe even radical. It suggests that suffering fundamentally isn't actually caused by what happens to you.
Right. Not the job loss, not the difficult relationship, not even the health scare, surprisingly enough.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to explore this idea that the mind, through its own interpretations, actually generates its own pain. And the core idea, the real nugget from these sources, is this. The single root of all the suffering is resistance.
Resistance. That's the key. It's this gap the mind insists on creating between what is actually happening and its idea of what should be happening.
And we're not just defining it today, are we? We want to get into the nitty-gritty.
Precisely. We're focused on the mechanism. How does resistance actually work? How does the mind use concepts, things like my identity, my purpose, my future, to build this wall? And to really map that out, we'll be using this fascinating ancient framework, the 10 fetters. Think of it like a detailed blueprint showing exactly where resistance hides in your everyday thinking.
Okay, let's unpack that because honestly, it's a challenging claim. If something genuinely terrible happens, let's say, you get a really bad diagnosis, that pain feels incredibly real. It feels external, justified. So how can these sources argue that a major crisis like that is just a trigger, not the actual cause of the deep suffering?
Yeah, that's the crucial distinction, and it takes a moment to really absorb. The immediate physical sensation, the sadness, the biological fear response, those are absolutely real. They're appropriate reactions to the event itself. But the suffering, the sticky, long-lasting, immobilizing pain, that's the resistance piled on top of the event.
Oh.
It's the mind kicking in with, this shouldn't be happening, or why me, or this isn't fair. The diagnosis is the trigger, yes. But the suffering, that's the internal war against the reality of that moment.
So it's self-inflicted, in a way.
In a fundamental way, yes.
Yeah.
And this internal battle is fueled entirely by what we can call the concept trap. Suffering really boils down to listening to your thoughts and just automatically believing their objective truth. Every thought, every mental label comes with this implicit claim. This is real. This is solid. Our minds are master storytellers.
Yeah.
And we mistake the stories, the concepts for the actual world.
And when reality inevitably bumps up against that mental story,
the mind panics. It scrambles to patch up the story, rebuild a conceptual framework. We might desperately cling to a concept like life must have a purpose.
Or that I am the stable, unchanging self.
Exactly. Or seeking permanence where there isn't any. But the sources are clear. Purpose, self, permanence. They're all mental constructs. Useful sometimes, maybe, but ultimately just ideas we mistake for solid ground.
Which leads to that pretty striking quote you mentioned from Adyashanti.
Yes, it's quite something. He essentially says that enlightenment, or awakening, is nothing less than the complete eradication of everything we imagine to be true. When you see through the concepts, even the concept of truth itself, the resistance that was defending them just dissolves.
I mean, this is critical. This resistance isn't just some abstract philosophical point. The sources really emphasize that resistance is the actual felt experience of suffering.
It is the suffering, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Resistance feels like it's doing something productive, like it's fighting off fear or grief or lack. But in reality, it's manufacturing the prolonged agony, the things resistance pushes against. They don't really solidify. They don't get that heavy, sticky quality until resistance gives them that form, that weight.
So without resistance, even difficult things like grief or intense pain,
they're just events. Sensations happening in the body-mind system, they pass through. They aren't woven into a narrative of personal injustice that needs to be endlessly battled.
Okay, so if suffering is resistance, the big question becomes, how do you stop resisting? Which, as the sources point out, leads to this kind of paradox of awakening, doesn't it?
It really does. Before any kind of awakening or deeper self-inquiry begins, resistance is usually totally invisible. It's just the way things are.
Like the water for the fish.
Exactly. Those habitual thoughts, I need to do better, life should be fair, this person wronged me, they just feel like objective facts. The self feels solid, its struggles seem completely justified and externally caused.
And people get stuck there, right? Trying endlessly to fix the external world to find peace.
Yeah, and it never quite works, does it? That constant effort trying to arrange life perfectly on the outside, it leads to this deep exhaustion, maybe even hopelessness. And ironically, that feeling of nothing works is often what pushes people inward.
The breaking point becomes the starting point.
Precisely. Then you start to see the resistance, maybe through mindfulness or self-reflection, and there's having this initial huge sense of relief. Like, oh, that's what was causing all the tension. Concepts loosen their grip. Suffering can decrease dramatically.
Okay, that sounds good. But then comes the twist the sources warn about. Awakening can also somehow intensify suffering for a while. That sounds counterintuitive. Discouraging, even. Why?
It does sound paradoxical, doesn't it? It intensifies because the very foundation of that resistance, the self-concept, the I who is resisting, starts to dissolve. All those concepts you use to define yourself, your identity, your purpose, your sense of meaning, they start to crumble. And that feels like loss. It is a loss, a destabilization. It can be profoundly painful.
Losing the ground beneath your feet.
Exactly. You're losing the conceptual self you thought you were. But that painful burning away is apparently necessary. It clears the ground for a deeper, non-conceptual freedom.
Okay, so if you're navigating that potentially destabilizing process, you need a map. Which brings us back to the 10 fetters. You described it as a blueprint for resistance.
Yes. It helps us stop seeing resistance as this one big, vague enemy and start seeing it as 10 specific, identifiable mental habits or beliefs that keep the whole structure of suffering in place.
So they aren't obstacles put there. They are the patterns of resistance themselves.
That's a great way to put it. They are the how of resistance. For anyone exploring this, they're invaluable because they make the abstract problem concrete. You can start to spot them in your own experience.
All right, let's walk through some of the key ones, starting with the big one, the foundation, identity view.
This is the core belief, really. I am a permanent, separate, fixed self. It's resistance against the flow, the truth, that everything, including you, is an impermanent process.
And we see this everywhere, right? Like refusing feedback at work because it clashes with your mental image of I'm the competent one. You're defending the concept.
Absolutely. Defending the job title, the role, the mental construct. Because without it, the conceptual me feels threatened, diminished.
Okay, what's next on the map?
Second is doubt. Skeptical doubt, specifically. This is resistance to the path or the process itself. The mind whispers, this self-inquiry stuff won't work, or it might work for others, but not for me, or I'm probably doing it wrong anyway.
The intellectual bypass.
You could call it that. It stops genuine exploration before it even starts. You just keep consuming information about the path instead of walking it because of that underlying resistance of doubt.
Okay, third.
Attachment to rites and rituals. This isn't just about religious rituals, though it can be. It's the belief that if I just follow this exact formula, this specific practice, this diet, this schedule, then I'll control reality, then I'll be safe, then I'll be free.
Right, like the person absolutely convinced that only their specific 5 a.m. green smoothie and 45-minute meditation combo is the key, and they judge anyone doing it differently.
Exactly. The method becomes rigid, a way of resisting the natural, unpredictable flow of life. It becomes another form of control, another concept to cling to.
Makes sense. Fourth is more emotional, ill will.
Yes, aversion. This is the active mental energy spent pushing away what's happening right now, generating resentment, anger, hatred towards the present moment, or a person or situation in it.
And this isn't just a fleeting annoyance.
No, it's often that long-term, simmering resentment, mentally replaying an old argument with your partner day after day. You're actively choosing to resist the potential peace of this moment by reviving and energizing a past conceptual injury. You're sustaining the suffering.
And the flip side of aversion.
Fifth, sensory craving, greed or grasping. The relentless push to get more pleasure, more pleasant experiences, and the desperate push to avoid any discomfort or pain. It's resistance against impermanence, the fact that pleasant things fade.
So the vacation ends and boom, sadness hits, or you're instantly planning the next escape, resisting the natural ending of the pleasant thing.
Precisely. Grasping for the next conceptual hit of satisfaction. Now, the next two are a bit more subtle, dealing with cravings for stability. Sixth is craving for form existence.
Okay, form existence. How do we translate that into everyday terms?
Think of it as seeking ultimate safety and security in the tangible material world. It's resisting the inherent change and chaos by clinging to the idea that physical objects or stable situations or structures are inherently solid, separate, and can offer lasting security.
Like believing your financial portfolio or owning a house or having a permanent job title provides real, lasting safety.
Exactly. Investing the material world with a conceptual permanence and security it doesn't actually possess. resisting the underlying flow and interconnectedness.
And the seventh must be related.
Yes, craving for formless existence. This is seeking that same security, but in the mental world, clinging to abstract ideas, fixed beliefs, intellectual frameworks, or even a detailed mental plan for how your future must unfold.
So this could be clinging to the idea of being spiritually advanced or intellectually superior, using concepts as a safe house.
Perfectly put. Resisting the raw, sometimes uncomfortable direct experience of reality by retreating into this seemingly stable, controllable world of thought and belief.
Okay, that's subtle. Eighth is conceit.
And this is a sneaky one, often arising later on the path. It's the subtle, lingering belief that there is still an I am at the center of experience, and this I is somehow special, maybe more aware or further along than others.
The spiritual ego, basically.
That's a common term for it, yes.
Yeah.
You might feel quietly superior because you've seen through some illusions, but the identification hasn't fully dropped. It just shifts from identifying with the suffering self to identifying with the enlightened seer self. Still a concept, still a subtle form of resistance.
Still protecting an I. Okay, ninth.
Restlessness. The mind's habitual resistance to just being still, to residing in the present moment without needing to do something, think something, plan something.
That constant itch. Needing to check the phone, plan the next hour, worry about tomorrow, seek distraction.
Yes. It's resisting the groundlessness, maybe even the emptiness that can arise when the usual mental chatter quiets down. Resisting just being present with what is, without commentary.
And the final fetter, the 10th, you called it the ultimate resistance. Ignorance.
Yes, avidya. This isn't about lack of information. It's the fundamental misperception, the deep-seated belief that our concepts are reality, that the mind's map is the territory. It's the filter itself, the resistance to direct, unfiltered experience, demanding that everything pass through mental interpretation first.
So when this final one dissolves,
all the other specific forms of resistance lose their root. The whole structure collapses.
So at that point, post-fetters, let's say, thoughts still come up, pain might still happen.
Oh, absolutely. Thoughts arise, sensations move through the body, physical pain can definitely still be felt. Life continues with all its textures, but none of it translates into suffering.
Why?
Because there's no longer a fixed conceptual self standing there resisting it all, insisting this shouldn't be happening. There's no central agent defending a conceptual territory against reality.
Okay. So, wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for someone listening right now, feeling their own version of dukkha?
The key takeaway from these sources is really transformative. That thing you experience as a terrible burden, your suffering actually becomes the path itself. It's not an obstacle to freedom. It reveals the way to freedom. Every single pang of pain, anxiety, or frustration is like a perfect mirror. It's showing you right now precisely where your mind is resisting reality through one of these conceptual filters, one of these fetters.
So freedom isn't found by, finally getting life perfectly arranged or mastering some complex technique.
No, it's found in the quiet, steady observation of these specific thought patterns, these fetters that create the resistance in the first place. Seeing them clearly is what allows them to dissolve. When nothing is resisted, suffering naturally subsides. What's left is just the ease of being, the intimacy with life as it is.
Okay, so a final thought to leave people with, building on that.
Well, since suffering really just reveals itself as belief in thought, belief in resistance, consider this. What if even the feeling of resistance itself, that tightening in your chest, that mental pushing away, what if you recognize that feeling also as just another concept, another appearance in awareness, not something solid you are, but something you're experiencing? If that resistance is simply seen, acknowledged, but not fueled, not indulged, it starts to fade. And as it fades, it reveals that the suffering it seemed to create was never inherent, never solid, never truly real to begin with.